Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and look at the lineup today. It's Liam Carrigan and Lawrence Conley. You look as though you're ready to go into battle there, Liam. What's this you're wearing?
Well, I did just have to have a fight with the wife to get the Wi-Fi working, so...
You look like you're tooled up for a podcast with Jamie O'Hara with that top on.
Well, I guess he's going to come up at some point, isn't he? So, yeah. No, Scotland game tomorrow, and I'm going to be a 24-hour patriot and pretend I actually care about Scotland and the event to qualify for the World Cup.
Well, I'm just going to point out that Liam Carrigan is in Japan, so it will be tomorrow for you, Liam, but myself and Lawrence will be watching it tonight. Celtic part-time, let's call it. And obviously, yesterday, you might have noticed that I had a T-shirt on my mannequin which said Casper saves. Now, I don't want to upset anybody. Obviously, we want Casper to save as much as possible when he's playing for Celtic. But tonight of all nights, I wouldn't mind if he doesn't save a few and obviously Scotland get through. And it would be a historical victory. I was looking...
I'll miss the game, though. I'll probably miss it. Going to look at parrots, mate.
You're going to look at parrots? Okay, yeah.
I think I get a parrot.
Yeah, okay, nice one. With regards to this, I was just looking at this last night, guys. I don't know if this was something that I've missed because we've been so involved in discussing the AGM, the new manager hunt, and everything else that's happening at Celtic. Stevie Clarke has managed more games for Scotland than any other manager in the history of Scottish football. How incredible is that? I just noticed this last night. I was having a look.
Was it like the Nations League stuff? And it's just increased the volume of games, isn't it?
We certainly have. There's no doubt about that, Lawrence, that we definitely have. I mean, even in recent times, I think Walter Smith was the manager of Scotland for about 3 years and he never even managed 20 games. So you're spot on in relation to that. But yeah, there you go. Stevie Clarke, he is obviously written himself into Scotland folklore. But I wanted to open up, not with the fact that Liam looks as though he's going to be fighting for William Wallace at some point today. But the reason I removed the Casper Saves one is so that nobody thought I was anti-Scotland tonight, which I'm absolutely not. But I also wanted to put this on the mannequin for a very good reason. You might notice in the comment section quite regularly, one of the commenter, Barry McCluskey. You also see Barry in the Facebook group. He's probably one of, if not the most frequent commenter on the Facebook group. Now, this jersey belongs to Barry. And through a number of different moves from studio to studio, etc., I've not returned it to you, Barry. And I wanted to put it on this mannequin and say, listen, I've not nicked it. You are getting it back. But there is a wee story behind this. Barry gave it to me because when I was doing a Celtic jersey book, right, there's a wee section, a very small section in that book, and it's about prototype jerseys that were pitched to the club, but which never seen the light of day. And this is one of them. This is a very, very rare Celtic jersey, probably one of the rarest Celtic jerseys out there, because this was when Gola were pitching their wares to Terry Cassidy of Celtic Football Club. CEO, the Umbro deal was coming up, and we were negotiating with Umbro, Adidas, and Gola, right? And this jersey was going to tear up the Celtic hoops and replace them with this kind of, I don't even know what you would describe that as, this kind of diamond design. So, Liam, this is the real deal, and it never saw the light of day, and Gola were going to scrap the green and white hoops. What's your thoughts, please?
I think that would make a really nice training top or, some sort of concept kit or something, but not in place of the hoops, definitely not. I like the shirt. I like it as a standalone Celtic curio, but not instead of the hoops, thank you very much.
My problem with that, Liam, is in the early 90s, just about anything, it was like the Wild West, anything went when Terry Cassidy was in the building. We had a red, white and blue sponsor and all this kind of stuff. If anybody was going to scrap the hoops, it was probably going to be him. But anyway, the story is in the book. It's in the Celtic jersey book as to how Barry managed to get his hands on this. And it was a big shout out to you, Barry. You're a massive supporter of Acsom, and I will be getting this jersey back to you as soon as possible. Loads to discuss, lads. I want to start off with Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill, there was a statement kind of late Monday night on the socials and on the Celtic website. There was also a wee interview up at Lennoxtown with Martin O'Neill confirming that he will be the man in charge of the game against St Mirren this weekend. Lawrence, are we working game to game here, or do we have a bigger plan?
The rumours are strong on Nancy, aren't they? I've said I'd be happy for Martin to take it to the transfer window. Wee bit pressure off the new guy if Martin, wins the cup and gets us to top of the league. New guy comes in now. The squad's a bit threadbare. Always risk the chance of a couple of bad results derailing the project before it gets off the ground. But we're obviously partway through the process. I think we'd like to kind of plan to make it as easy as possible for when the new manager comes in. I think we could probably wait. Fans would, be happy with Martin leading us. And if Martin has a couple of bad results, I think he'd get a lot more leeway than a new manager would. So,
good point.
I think it maybe kind of hopefully plan it out that way. They might announce the new guys coming in, leave Martin in charge for a while, and work on recruitment, dare I say, identifying targets for the new guy, bringing them in. So as when the window opens, we've got at least one striker coming in and at least one right winger.
Right. On some of the points you're making there, Lawrence, yesterday was the day of positivity on Acsom. We got all the positivity out the road yesterday, mate. So you're looking at an idealistic world here where Celtic plan things. Liam, what's going on with Lawrence here in this positivity feeding and bleeding into Tuesday? I mean, do you honestly think this is a plan? Is this a plan? Because I don't know. I'm looking at it and thinking, if Celtic as a football club could throw out a positive message this week in the run-in to the AGM, then they would. Am I being a wee bit too cynical there, Liam?
I think, if I'm being honest, I still think Nancy is probably going to be the next manager. But what I think has happened is the board have pulled out all the stops to try and get him in a position to announce before the AGM to take the pressure off. And he's just been like, no, wait a minute, I need a wee bit of time to think about this. And as I mentioned in the blog yesterday, that Dermot Desmond statement on Brendan Rodgers will not have done Celtic any favours in terms of bringing in a new manager. Anybody who looks at that statement is going to be like, that could be me in 6 months or whatever if it doesn't work out.
Well, I think I made that point at the time, Liam, so I 100% agree with that. I don't think it was a good look for Celtic. I don't think that it was classy. And as you say, it may actually affect the hunt for a new manager. Really keen to get your thoughts. There's plenty to discuss. Obviously, Scotland are playing Denmark tonight. Some Celts will be involved in that game. There's an AGM on Friday. The Celtic Trust have made their feelings known about that, so we'll be covering that as well. Lawrence has already mentioned the little matter of a January transfer window upcoming, and absolutely, we do have a threadbare squad, particularly when you throw on top of that all the injuries that we've got at the moment. How good are Celtic? How good is Michael Nicholson at doing deals? Does that come into the equation when we talk about what I have called a stall? Pinball's no having the word stall, though. Stalled is a strange word to use, he says. If he doesn't pass the interviews, then we don't want him. That's not a stalling. That's just not our guy. The stall, I would say, would be based on the fact that Martin O'Neill expected a new manager to be in place after the international break. I don't think he expected to be in the dugout for the game against St Mirren on Saturday night. Therefore, if we expected to have a manager in and he's not, I think stall is a word that could be used. In terms of Nancy then, Lawrence, I mean, we've seen a few names mentioned. I don't know where the origins of the Nancy link came from. There's nothing confirmed on either side, which is the norm. But Nancy certainly became the favourite with the bookies. And I don't know if that's where all the media attention has come from with regards to him. Do you think there's anybody else in the equation? Because let's not forget, this is a football club that chased Eddie Howe for weeks and weeks. The Eddie Howe deal broke down. They claimed that we had Ange, who was being spoken to in parallel with Eddie Howe, which we know is nonsense because Ange confirmed that himself. And we were basically left with a situation where all the eggs were in the one basket, the Eddie Howe basket. Have we placed all our eggs in the Nancy basket, Lawrence?
Listen, if the bookies can come up with a list of targets you'd hope, Michael Nicholson could too. So surely not beyond us, to especially after the Howe recruitment, that we think these don't always work out. Maybe we might better have a few options. I've not heard anything out of Celtic who they are. I've just seen the bookies lists.
What about your list, Lawrence? You're in recruitment. You are a recruitment specialist. If someone's going for a managerial position, what are you expecting from the company's perspective in terms of a shortlist? Are you talking half a dozen?
Yeah, about that 5 or 6 for a top level position.
Yeah.
5 or 6, at least three of those going to interview. So
Right.
you need to have done a lot of digging on them just to get to the shortlist. Screening calls, background checks, etc. You'd want done on them. How far along Celtic are in that, I don't know. I think Martin and the way he drives a Honda Civic certainly bought Celtic a bit of time. Maybe he's got his horse outside. I don't know.
The thing with Martin driving the Honda Civic, what I can say with some certainty is that the tunes will be quality, Liam, because he's got a great taste in music, all the way back to the Kinks and up to Mogwai in Las Vegas in the kind of modern times. And Oasis, he told me a story that he and his wife met Noel Gallagher, and throughout the conversation, his wife called him Liam all the way through it, and Martin was embarrassed and black affronted by that. The Weirsider, a good afternoon from a rainy Sunderland, right? I'm bringing this up here because I had a wee book here, right? And I've actually moved it onto a different pile. It was right there, and it's a Mackem dictionary. It gives you all the Mackem words and an explanation as to what on earth they mean. And I bought it from a shop just across the road from, it's the Stadium of Light, the Sunderland Stadium, isn't it?
Yeah,
Stadium of Light.
That just been redone up. Was that built round about the same time as Celtic Park?
Yes, there's a great video.
We invested in it.
There's a brilliant video on that, Lawrence. That's a good point. Go and search YouTube and have a look at the project of bringing it right up to date, Lawrence. That's a great shout. Right across from the stadium, there's a wee shop called A Love Supreme, which is like an old school fanzine from back in the day. And they are the guys that look after Acsom's merchandise. So there you go. They've got a print shop up the stairs. Big shout out to the boys. They're having a good season, aren't they? Jungle Lion, you're in. Did the Nancy deal fall through? I don't know. That's what we're trying to get to the bottom of, Liam. And this is a discussion between three Celtic fans. Some people in the comments will say, stop panicking and all the rest of it. Quite frankly, I'm okay at the moment with Martin O'Neill. Lawrence says keep him there until January. There has to be work done in the background in terms of recruitment. Whoever's coming in has to be part of that, though, Liam. And that's the one bit that I'm a wee bit uncomfortable with.
Look, it's partly sentimentality, partly nostalgia, whatever talking, but I would just love it for the new manager to be in place by the time the cup final comes round, and he's sitting in the stand watching Martin and Sean Maloney lead out the team to win the cup. And then Martin says, job done, there you go. That would just be perfect in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. Nostalgia is a big thing for guys like you and me, Liam. We're always looking back to the good old days. But in the modern day, of course, we are a football club that needs to modernise, Lawrence. Did you see the interest in Nancy as part of that modernisation, let's say, of the football department?
Certainly a change of tact. Last time we went getting Brendan, household name, big ego. So, he's a young coach that's doing well in MLS. How that transfers over here, it's a lot riskier than the Brendan appointment, if it is to be Nancy. But I would say in the nostalgia, beating Rangers in a cup semi-final, inclusive of a decapitation of one of the players, and two 4-0 wins in the league, kind of makes you nostalgic, doesn't it? Martin's sort of got the team playing well, so.
Right, okay. Now, I'm going to link that into a point Kevin Graham made yesterday, Lawrence, right? That me, Quinny and Kev, we got so immersed in our conversation, there was loads of things I wanted to say that I didn't. So you've actually pointed out one of them, and that is touching on the fact that we're looking at the squad. Kevin Graham said it's the worst squad we've had in terms of quality since the Ronnie Dyla era, right? So I'm throwing that out to the comments. Let us know in the comments if you agree with Kev's statement. In terms of depth, I get where he's coming from, but only in certain areas. Only in certain areas of the park.
I would say the quality's looked a lot better since Martin's took over than it looked before.
This is my point. So, this is my point, Lawrence, right? Are we underperforming? That was my point. So, yeah, we're looking at the squad, but was it an underperforming or a lack of quality for you?
Well, there was a lot of guys there was a few guys when they get a chance. Osman been worrying him. I know he's injured now. Trustees came in, looked great. So I think there was a bit of Brendan's stubbornness about it. I think everybody agrees the guys that do the recruitment deals, didn't get them done in time and didn't do that for the manager. But with kind of 2 months of Brendan moaning about it after the window closed. And I don't think it was doing the squad any good. I don't think it was doing the mood around the ground any good, or round about Lennoxtown any good. I think a bit of positivity and a bit of motivation from Martin O'Neill has certainly lifted all the players. Clean slate, made us playing with a smile on his face again. Even Hatate's starting to play better. So, Engels playing alongside Callum, and Callum playing further forward instead of almost in line with the centre halves. Who would have thought it, pushing Callum further forward? Might work out. Might get a goal or two.
You might have suggested that a wee while back, to be fair. Let me bring in as many comments as we possibly can. What we're talking about today, we're talking about prototype Celtic jerseys. There was a few in the book, by the way. One of them was modelled by Willie McStay on the front page of the Celtic View. Lawrence will probably remember this. And this was the season, I'm going to say 82-83, where we had a bottle green and white pinstripe away jersey, and then we had a white with bottle green pinstripe third jersey. Yep. Exactly the same, but different colourways. Well, the Celtic jersey at that point, the home one, had a badge in the middle when we launched it in the Celtic View, but when it actually was worn and when it was available to buy, it had its badge in the normal side on the left breast. So unbelievably, somebody out there managed to get that jersey. That's also in the book.
Don't know if that was the normal side at the time, though, was it? Because it was 77 badge in the middle.
First badge ever. First badge ever was in the centre.
First badge in the hoops, the second badge in the, or maybe third badge in the strips, because you had the Shamrock and then you had the original badge.
You did.
In the original strip. But 77 in the centre, and then obviously early 80s onto the left breast, and it's kind of stayed there since, isn't it?
It has. It's now, I mean, not always. There was an away strip recently, and it was in Angie's first season, a third kit actually, the white one with the pink and green pinstripe, and we returned to the crest in the middle there. But no, you're spot on. The first time beyond the very first jersey that the crest appeared on hoops was in the centre. Absolutely spot on. You've read a book. You've read a book. You've done your research.
Might have done.
Yeah, brilliant.
I looked at the pictures anyway.
Well, there's far too many pictures in that book, apparently, if you look at the Amazon reviews. Right. Michael McGowan. It's a picture book, Liam, with far too many pictures in it. Michael McGowan.
The sort of book Sergio Perini's into, allegedly.
Yes, if you know, you know. The Celtic fans want Martin, so Martin will get the job. Do they? Let me know in the comment section right now. Let's do like a little kind of straw poll. Let's do a poll right now. Do you want Martin O'Neill to be the Celtic manager up until the end of the year, up until the end of the season? I'm watching the comments coming through live, and I'll bring them up. And I'll ask you while I'm waiting on the comments coming up, Liam, would you take him to the end of the season? Do you see that as a nostalgic trip, a backward step, or probably what we need right now?
I think there would definitely be a touch of nostalgia and fan appeasement to it, because it's an easy move to make. But if needs must, I'd be okay with it. I'm confident in him to get the job done. Martin O'Neill will be good enough for us to win the league, which is the most important thing.
Well, it is. It absolutely is under these circumstances, because death by 1,000 cuts is how Jim Ward described the last time we didn't win the league. When everything conspires at the same time, then, you know, the perfect storm exists and it can happen. And we might be in the realms of that. A steady ship is what we need. Lawrence, whilst more comments come through, what's your thoughts? It's not about nostalgia for me. It really is about steadying the ship here.
See the more wins he puts in domestically, and if he wins the cup, it kind of looks more and more attractive. I would still like to change it at the January transfer window. Get a new manager in, give him a chance to win for the Champions League. I think Martin would get us to the top of the league. I think he'd win the first domestic trophy of the season. If we got to that stage and the guys that do the deals had been unable to do a deal in 2.5 months or so, just over 2 months. Yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to Martin staying. You know, if he's racked up the domestic wins and we can't get the right guy in the door. But surely the guys that do the deals would be able to get somebody in by January.
Well, the big thing for me is, see, whilst Martin O'Neill is there, and there's been a stability since he's come in, Liam, and we've got over the issues, I think, that arose after the big statement from Dermot Desmond, and we're now just focusing on where we are in terms of the team, the issues we've got with injuries, issues we've got coming up to January. I look at that and I just think, he's absolutely stabilised things. Yeah, we've cut the gap at the top of the league, and yes, we're in a cup final. You bring someone in right now, and I mentioned this yesterday, our next 6 fixtures are as follows. The next 3 are away from home. Saturday night, we've got St Mirren, followed by Feyenoord away, followed by Hibs at Easter Road. The next 3 after that is Dundee, Hearts and Roma, all at home. Now, again, I think Lawrence was given quite a bit of credit to a Celtic board that I don't have a great amount of faith in at the top of the show here. Is it a plan? I would say no. I would say that there's an issue. Now, the issue might be something as simple as paperwork. It might be something really, really simple, Liam. I'm not just basically diving in with the studs up here, but it may also be that the people that do our contracts, and we've been told that we've been asked the question, who else would you rather do your contracts than a contracts guy and a finance guy? They've not been very good at closing deals, Liam. And this is my concern as well. They have now got a track record of other clubs' directors coming out, other players coming out, ex-players coming out, and saying, we've been lowballed, they need to conduct themselves better, etc., etc. So they've already got a bit of a track record for failing to get the deal over the line. Does that come into your thinking, Liam?
Absolutely. I wouldn't fancy them to negotiate anything right now, to be quite honest. I just, there's a reason why, the Celtic Trust putting out their statement last night calling for all of the board members up for re-election to be replaced. I think that's pretty unprecedented, right? There's been opposition to certain members of the board before, but this is the first time they've come out and universally said everybody needs changed around. This is not working. And I think that's indicative of just how important it is that they get this appointment right. And I hope that the statement Celtic made yesterday was just a holding position so that they can try and get something done ahead of Friday. But I have absolutely no confidence that that's the case. I'm sure that's what they want to do. In Celtic's view, it's like, we'll get it done by Friday. It'll be fine. We'll walk into the AGM. We'll be heroes. Everything will be normal. No, not going to happen, guys. You can appoint Mourinho tomorrow, and the same questions will still have to be answered at the AGM on Friday regarding the running of the club. It's a lot more than just a manager that needs brought in.
Liam, this is a huge point, a very important point. We are focusing on a new manager, but it isn't going to solve all the issues that the fans collective, the Celtic Trust, 420 plus different Celtic groups of supporters and affiliations, associations, etc., have all come to the table about. None of that was about Brendan Rodgers. None of that was about the manager. The manager situation has been brought into the discussion since all this started.
Yeah.
So you're spot on. Let's have a wee look at what Liam has described there. There's the Celtic Trust's official website. They're having a look at the AGM and the reasons for Celtic Trust voting recommendations. So they've explained here throughout every single resolution. And if you look at all of these resolutions in reference specifically to named board members, what Liam has said is absolutely spot on. So you look at Resolution 2 to reappoint Brian Rose. Celtic Trust vote against that. Brian Wilson, Chris Mackay, Dermot Desmond, Michael Nicholson, Peter Lawwell, Sharon Brown and Tom Allison all have the same vote. So the Celtic Trust are voting against all of these board members being reappointed to the board. And I think that the message has been loud and clear for some time. The AGM on Friday, I don't think it will be streamed live, but there's certainly going to be people in the room who will be covering it live on social media and presenting every single development to a wider Celtic fan base. So it's going to be a very interesting AGM on Friday. It's not tea and biscuits this week, is it, Lawrence?
No, definitely not. Look, I don't expect Lindsay training, and Dermot's stranglehold will be broken, unfortunately. It's going to be what Dermot wants. Doesn't stop people from getting called out. And, there's people need to look in the summer. we should have been going from strength to strength. Look at that game against Bayern, how closely we took them. And everybody in there needs to be looking, going, what went wrong? Obviously, Brendan's walked. He tendered his resignation if he didn't think things could work out. Hopefully, a few other people are thinking along the same lines and going, actually, what am I bringing to the game here? Am I stopping Celtic from progressing?
Are they capable? Are they capable of that level of insight, though, Lawrence? This is my concern, because when you're so successful, I think you get blinkered into believing that you're almost untouchable. And this is my big concern about these guys. And I did see it to a degree in that meeting that I was at a few months back with the CEO and CFO. I seen two figures there who it was just noise to them. I mean, even the original statement, as I can refer to it, remember the original statement, guys, prior to Dermot Desmond's, right? they thought that original statement was okay. They just thought it didn't land with a few supporters. And I'm sitting in that meeting thinking to myself, these guys are so far away, so far removed from the flavour of what the fans are actually talking about. Now, I'm not saying I know what everybody's talking about, but what I can do is I can say that, on a daily basis on this particular show, we get over 1,000 comments from Celtic supporters from all over the globe. So you can get a sense of feeling, Lawrence. So my concern, going back to what you said there, is that there's going to be any kind of reflection, any looking in the mirror and saying, what, maybe we're not as good as we think we are.
Surely that's got to have been done by now. The amount of things that went wrong through the summer, you would identify who the club was involved with it, where it went wrong, and see if that lines up on a few occasions. I know correlation's not always causation, but you need to look a wee bit harder and go, wait a minute, you weren't the guy responsible for getting all of these done and none of them happened. What's going on here? And listen, those guys must be feeling the pressure just now. You'd think so. It can't be this oblivious to know about it was a terrible summer for us. Have we had a worse summer in terms of getting guys in the door?
Brendan's first season, perhaps?
Bear in mind, all the scouting and targets had been identified before May was out. So the scouting department had done their work.
The thing is, though, Lawrence, I actually think that in terms of getting deals done, when you look at the amount of new signings who are part of the starting 11, Brendan Rodgers' first transfer window actually would be worse because fewer players were actually utilised from that particular window. The 9 guys that came in, very few of them were actually used or indeed kept. Whereas at least we are looking at some impact from some of the newbies. If you look at Tierney, Nygren, Tuneke, Iheanacho to a degree.
I would say some of that was down to Brendan. Like Rocky and Lagerbielke have looked good elsewhere. I think Brendan, unless it appeared to be unless they were top level or his players, not club signings, very little chance of getting in the team. We're struggling for a striker and Osman couldn't get near the team. I know we only saw a cameo from him, but it looked decent. We could have used him.
Yeah. He should have been in the squad. He should have been in the squad.
He should come off the bench.
I want to ask you, though, especially with the situations with strikers, I want to ask you about your comment there about the scouting, because obviously we've also had the head of scouting leaving the football club. So
he was the head of scouting. Maybe he put that story out.
That was his title. He was the head of scouting, J. Lefebvre, and he had been the head of scouting for some time since he joined from Arsenal, and he's now gone. So, I mean, we are in a state of flux when it comes to recruitment, and obviously the scouting team, I guess, would just click back into their day-to-day role and continue to do what they're doing. Does Paul Tisdale then become their first-line manager? There needs to be someone to report to.
I would think so. I think Martin would be involved as well, and Sean. Those are the guys that will be able to say, look, this is where surgery is really needed in this squad.
Yeah.
We need so much. There's so much obvious. I don't think you could need that. You need Martin and Sean right enough. We need strikers. We need a right winger. Right now, unfortunately, young Colby's injury, we might need a right back as well.
Yeah, because you were thinking also about Savachi, who can play both sides, but he's out.
Yeah. So it is getting pretty bad in the injury front. But yeah, I'd imagine Teasdale would come in and Martin and Sean would have a chat with him, see where they're getting on. Because the guys aren't going to be sitting doing nothing. They'll be reviewing players.
Oh, absolutely.
Keeping the list fresh.
Yeah.
hopefully they're a wee bit involved in the style of manager that's going to come in and the style of football helps them identify what's needed as well.
What I would say, Lawrence, on that though, is regardless of what happens, in terms of the new manager, I would expect Sean Maloney to still be at the football club. I would expect him to slot back into his previous role. You know what? He might actually be part of the first team coaching team, who knows? But I would expect him still to be at Celtic. Therefore, I think there'd be a much more of a focus on him being involved in that scouting process at the moment and identifying where we need to strengthen, because Martin O'Neill's not going to be part of that. Unless he takes a step upstairs, and I know that's been discussed, he's not going to be part of the day-to-day football operation, is he?
Don't think so. I don't think he'll be part of the first team squad. I can see him moving upstairs. I said, Dermot's brought him back. He obviously knows he gets a lot of fans on side. Bringing Martin back takes a lot of the pressure out of the situation. And I think he'll be wise enough to try and keep him in a position at the club. And whether that's working between the football side and the business side, maybe making things a bit smoother, who knows? But yeah, wouldn't be in a hurry to let Martin go now he's back. Even if it's just for his interviews.
Yeah, well, I actually think that when it comes to having someone, I read the names out there of the board members who will not be, the vote will be against them being reappointed at the AGM, and I asked myself, looking at the list of names, where's my football head? You know what I mean, Liam? If you're sitting in a boardroom and they're talking about some kind of strategy of bringing in Quan, when Brendan Rodgers is taking over, bringing in Home and bringing in all these guys that are project players for the future, when in actual fact we need to improve the start 11. You need someone in there who's able to step up and say, well, actually, from a football angle, this is the wrong move. Now, Martin O'Neill would do that, and Martin O'Neill wouldn't be shrinking violet when it comes to saying you're wrong. I mean, he's had words over the years with Dermot Desmond. There's the famous conversation on the plane back from, was it Shakhtar Karagandhi, after they beat us in Europe, and there was a plan that Martin O'Neill had going into the following season, whereby it was, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to cost us this. It was almost like phase 2, Liam, of the Martin O'Neill era at Celtic. And that plan was kiboshed because we weren't going to reinvest another 30 or 40 million pounds into the squad. So Martin O'Neill doesn't just sit there and take it. He's going to step up. And I think it's about time we had people in the boardroom or within the boardroom setting who would step up to the regime.
On that note, though, what I would say about Wilfried Nancy, and I wrote something about this on the blog today. A lot of people that
Shakhtar Donetsk. It wasn't Karagandhi, it was Donetsk.
Right.
My mistake.
The thing with Wilfried Nancy, a lot of people have been worried, and I can understand the worry that he would just be a yes man for the board because he's coming in from an unknown league, presumably just to do as he's told. If you look into this guy's history, particularly what happened to him at CF Montreal before he went to Columbus Crew, this is not a guy who just sits down and does what he's told. I mean, if you read the background, it's heavily implied he basically offered the owner a square go when he tried to push his way into the changing room after the team lost a match, and Nancy basically told him, do one, you're not a football man. So I don't get the impression that Nancy would come here and be a yes man. Is he a good enough manager for Celtic? There's a debate to be had there. Is he experienced enough? Probably not, but I would argue very few managers in world football are experienced enough to understand what it's about at Celtic, right? You think about it, there's probably only, maybe 10, 15 other teams in the world that have our level of fan base, our level of expectation in terms of winning every single domestic game.
Yeah.
It's Barcelona, Real Madrid, used to be Man United, now it's maybe Liverpool and Man City. You've got Boca Juniors and River Plate, maybe Bayern Munich in Germany, and there's a few others, but it's no, you're talking about a dozen, maybe 2 dozen teams at most.
No, this is the thing as well, when you talk about the level of expectation, Liam, it's that of what last week was described as a big club. Being a big club or not, it's a big mentality of constantly demanding that you win games. It's not for me anyway, it's not about being entitled. It's about saying, well, if you're a club that settles for second best or a draw or defeat, then you'll never be a successful club. And I think it's tremendous that there's a whole generation of Celtic fans that don't know defeat. Absolutely. We talk about a winning mentality on the park. I think we've got a winning mentality in the stands as well. Make Martin the director of football, says Plunge. Director of football is different though, isn't it, from head of football operations? So I think head of football operations is a job where you need to be immersed in it 24/7. Obviously, that is currently Paul Tisdale's role. Director of football for me would be actually a director of the football club, but the head of football. So you are speaking to your head of the football operations and you're feeding that into the boardroom. I think that's what his role would be. He'd be the guy actually breaking down the barriers between the football department and the boardroom. Whether or not that happens, we will just need to wait and see. Now, Liam, there's a whole selection of comments coming in for your top here, by the way. So these are all tongue in cheek, and I will bring them in as they arrive.
Right.
First one is from Martin O'Neill. Is Liam about to go to head to a Renaissance fair or something? I don't know if they have them in Japan, a Renaissance fair.
It's about 500 years out of sync there, is it not, in terms of the time when this was actually a thing?
Liam looks like he's heading to Bannockburn on a horse for a cavalry charge. There we go.
At least it won't be a white horse.
No, at least they're leaving me alone, Liam, that's for sure. And Franny Jacqueline says, I think maybe nostalgia is giving kudos to Martin O'Neill. I think there's an element of that, but there was also the element of the fact that had Martin O'Neill not come in as the manager, if you like, as the statesman of this regime, this new management team, then I don't think it would have been well received for Sean Maloney to be the manager, backed up by Gavin Strachan and Stephen McManus. So you've got to take that into account as well, Lawrence. Martin has taken a lot of the focus off the backroom team in a big way, because I've not really heard anybody question why Gavin Strachan's not followed all the other team with Brendan Rodgers, including John Kennedy, not just guys that Rodgers brought in. I've not heard many people talking about that. I've not heard many people with an issue about Sean Maloney getting the role. And I think that's all down to the fact that Martin O'Neill was there.
Yeah, listen, Martin's definitely the figurehead. But, 2 4-0 wins, a win in the semi-final, people are a wee bit happier. The team's playing a lot better. They're maybe not passing the ball about as much as the back. We don't have that Calmac, Carter Vickers, Scales,
Definitely
triangle going on. It's a lot better to watch, isn't it? And Martin, I don't think he had VAR first time round, so he must be pleased to see it in use. And obviously Willie Collin backing up the use of it and the interpretation of the laws.
Liam, I asked Lawrence Conley about Martin O'Neill taking the focus away from Sean Maloney and Gavin Strachan, and somehow within 30 seconds we're talking about Willie Collin and VAR. I'm glad you managed to switch the conversation, Lawrence, by the way.
I think it's great just to obviously come out, explain the laws and why they were applied in that situation, and I don't think anybody's getting an argument with it. Let's be honest, that could have been 6 or 1 money. We could have had 3 penalties in that game. But the media's not talking about it. There could be another 2 Rangers players sent off. They're all out looking for stuff that doesn't exist against Trusty.
It's about angles and perception, and it's about taking the focus away from what you've just said there about other decisions.
Set the narrative. It's not. How often do we beat them at Hampden? Since they've been formed. Have they won once at Hampden against us?
Yeah, that was under Ronnie Dyler, wasn't it? In the penalty shootout.
How many more times do we need to beat them before we get to keep them?
I wouldn't keep them. You can have that back. I'd return them. No, actually, Lawrence has brought up a point that I want to expand on, and that is the VAR. It's still a discussion point. A couple of weeks down the line, let them have a meltdown. I don't care about that. But I think what it brings into view, and there was the other issue with the lines that Michael Stewart was going on about as well. Something we've already spoken about, Lawrence, because we spoke to Granty about it, didn't we? About the fact that it all comes down to human error.
I mean, Granty was quite candid on it, that he's been told down south, that line could be thinner or thicker depending on who you support, who the
Yeah.
guy supported making a line, and changes the difference.
Big time.
You know, so I said I think Alan Morrison's stats prove that VAR's worked to an extent, and so much as that the apparent bias has been diminished, and everybody's getting bad decisions. You know, they're spread equally amongst the teams rather than just one team being favoured. So,
but that bias you talk about, Lawrence, if you've been, you know, if you've been benefiting from a bias for such a long time, that the bias no longer exists, which is, I believe, what's happening now, because otherwise it will be highlighted the way that this is being highlighted, the way that, you know, mistakes are being highlighted by Willie Collin. So I'm going to expand on this a bit, VAR, because I don't think the VAR system we've got is good enough. But if that bias has existed for so long, and then you remove it, the people who've been benefiting from that bias all of a sudden think they're being hard done by, because they're no longer getting the decisions. And that's where we are right now.
They thought, you know, they've got rights to get penalties, 3 or 4 in a game if they're struggling. And it's been removed now, but which is great to see. And the meltdown's been marvellous. You know, as you said, it's week 3. You know, and
we're in week 3 now. Wow, this is a classic. This is up there. I mean, with regards to this, I'm now seeing. And
I just wonder how we're going to cope with a referee strike, though, because surely there's going to be a referee strike. You know, I mean, they all walked out for Neil Lennon making one comment about a referee that was proven to be true. He was a liar. And Rangers have slandered numerous officials for giving decisions that were proven to be correct, and no word.
No word on Derek McInnes either. And his bias, you know, Celtic with more injury time. All right.
I think actually when I hear people coming out like that and focus on things like that, Lawrence, it's showing that they're actually a little bit rattled. And this is something we've got to be aware of as well, in terms of Hearts are in a position at the moment where they're not used to being the front runners at this stage. And Derek McInnes certainly is not used to being in this position. And you will see cracks developing and appearing, Lawrence, in their armoury, just to keep the get up that Liam's got on there. In their armoury, they will see cracks developing. And I think we've already seen that. I think that shows that he's a bit rattled. He's looking for other reasons, isn't he?
They were lucky to get a point against St Mirren. They're definitely feeling the pressure of 2 games per week and have been at the top. And, you know, and maybe, I remember Mark's comment on the Monday, Hearts are the favourite. I remember the Rangers are the benchmark comment, and you're kind of going to these two tied in, turning up the pressure on them. Mark playing the games again.
Mind games.
Hopefully, because he's very good at it. And it's starting to show.
Very good point indeed. On the VAR then, guys, right? And I mean, this sounds obvious, but, you know, in relation to what happened last week, where we are basically always sitting ducks, if you like, for criticism in terms of Scottish football. We're always getting it tight, right? And anybody that knows what they're talking about can pretty much argue the toss when it comes to Scottish football. But there are certain things where we don't help ourselves, Liam. We really don't as a nation, right? And one of them for me is VAR. I think, I agree with Lawrence, it's great that we've got it. I think Alan Morrison's a massive advocate of this as well, Lawrence. Don't scrap it. I've heard loads of people saying, "I'll just scrap it." Don't scrap it. Absolutely don't scrap it. But what we should do is we should ensure that the investment in VAR is such that we have the best system possible. Now, if that means that we need to restructure the financial makeup of Scottish football from the top down, let's do it. Let's make sure we've got VAR right, Liam. It's more important than many other things up at Hampden Park, for example, that costs a lot of money.
Well, I'm going to repeat something that I've said several times on here before, but I think it's just as pertinent. VAR in Scottish football is like a huffy teenager that doesn't want to tidy up their room. So you deliberately do it really badly, really poorly, so that your mum comes in and says, "Oh, forget it, I'll do it myself." And that's what's happening with VAR, right? It's being run badly, and the voices saying just ban it are growing, and that's what they want, because then you can go back to the days of zero accountability, doogie, etc., and so on. And I think that a lot of the people in charge of Scottish football would be happier with that. Because the meltdowns, there's a direct, if you look at the graph, there's a direct correlation between the introduction of VAR and the number of Sevconian meltdowns. It's like they're linked, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the goal scoring ability of a certain James Tavernier from set pieces, for example, have been diminished since the introduction of VAR and the introduction of Willie Collum. Also, I'm hearing online that we're on some kind of record run of never getting a red card. Maybe that's because we've always got the ball. We've always got the ball. So
Charlie Mulgrew said it's because we know how to behave ourselves.
There is also that.
So there's two aspects to VAR. You know, and I think both could definitely be improved. The guys operating the system, if they are making regular mistakes continuously, change them. You know, you're like, you're not good enough to be, you know, whether it's Dallas or Aiken or whatever, saying, look, you just keep making mistakes. I'm sorry, that's you on a warning now. It can't go on. The other one is a lot easier to fix. Get a better system in. You know, look round about and see what the best system is we can get. Definitely don't think we've got it. Love Willie's show, but it could actually do a wee bit more explanation within the stadium. You know, getting the ref announced it. You know, it's been a VAR review. This is what we saw, rather than
make it part of the spectacle.
Oh, 100%, mate. You know, think about it. You know, when they used to have the referees reports, kind of telegram or posting them in was the communication of the day.
Yeah,
they seem to have kept that speed of communication up just now. You're like, look, the guy could be doing this real time. This is what myself and the VAR team saw. This is why we're giving a decision.
And make sure there's a screen that Jim Orr can see when that decision's made.
Yeah, definitely.
He's been going into a meltdown since COVID on that.
Maybe make sure there's a team the Safeco bench can see, so they can see it's not studs into the face, it's the side of the foot. Maybe hand them a copy of the rules and say, look, it's not excessive force.
The thing is, they don't accept it either way. So they demand a meeting up with the SFA Beaks. They get the response. Well, but I'm not happy with that response. I want another meeting. It's like it's just going to continue. Now, the weird side.
What's their end game, though? What is their end game? I mean, the match isn't going to be replayed. They're still out of the cup. They're still behind us in the league. Nothing, you know, it's...
I think it's
all
deflection.
they're doing is just appeasing the worst elements of their fans.
It's deflection. Because see, without all these meltdowns, some of the fans might be looking and going, actually, we don't actually win anything. Well, what's going on? You know, are they the same amount of trophies as St Johnstone since they were formed? You know, one ahead of them. You know, that's kind of the level, and it distracts from that's the level. So
I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it, Lawrence. I also think that they would much rather not have it in place, because I don't hear them saying, let's improve VAR. I don't hear them saying that. I don't hear them saying, right, let's bring to the table a plan where we can refinance that so that Scottish football's more efficient and we can put that money elsewhere and into a VAR system that's a better system. I don't hear them saying that. I think they would much rather scrap it, because if they can scrap it, they go back to what they did before. Yeah,
they would love that. And you know, I'm with Alan Morrison, but we've got to keep it. We've got to improve it. Two aspects to improve. The guys using it seem to be making fairly obvious mistakes. I didn't see the explanation from Willie why the penalty instance weren't looked at by the VAR team. You know, the penalties that Celtic could have had.
I'm not surprised you never saw it, because all the focus has been on Trusty.
Yep, but you know what I mean. If that department had been operating properly, we would say, the penalty instance here we need to explain on the show. Why weren't these looked at by the VAR team? Hopefully Willie's done that behind closed doors and said, look, guys, he's missed 2 or 3 penalties for Celtic there. He didn't even review it. What's going on?
Hatate, Ralston, the Cornelius challenge on Kenny. It takes me on to Johnny Kenny and the Irish boys. Yes, I spoke about it yesterday, but I'm going to speak about it again today. Before I do that, I absolutely am going to parrot myself. I'm going to give a big shout out to the Weirsider for supporting a Celtic state of mind. Don't know what the significance of £7.73 is. Is this one of these big 6-7 things? I don't know. Let me know in the comments to the Weirsider. Great to have you on board.
That's the current cost of buying Rangers, apparently.
Oh, is that right?
Jeez, they went up that much.
Stop it. Right. In fact, didn't stop it. Breezel, 27. Nice avatar. Martin O'Neill as an ambassador or director of football would work for you, Breezy. Interesting. It is interesting. I would like to see
that.
him still at the club. And Robert Hylands, the majority of fans don't want Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill doesn't even want Martin O'Neill. I've watched all his interviews, and I think you're right, Robert. I don't think he wants to be the manager. I don't think he wants the intensity of the Celtic job at his age. I'm not being ageist, but at 73, the amount that's taken out of him. I mean, the first question I think Jerry McCulloch asked him on Celtic TV was it nice to get a wee break? And I think he was delighted that he got a wee break. I am going to parrot myself and talk about Ireland because, honestly, I said this to Kev yesterday. When you watch that montage of the hat-trick followed by the celebrations, people running on the park, Liam, and then the interview by Troy Parrott, I said yesterday, it reminds you why you fell in love with football. It's just that kind of Rocky moment. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, the underdog, phenomenal.
Was it a Leary kind of Italian 90 moment? Was it?
It was up there, aye. It was. We talk about nostalgia, Lawrence, but it absolutely was, because modern football has, I think, squeezed a lot of that, I don't know, spontaneity out of the game, even with our decisions, of course, whereby Liam and I watched the game at the weekends on a watch-along, and I kept mentioning it because it's no longer normal. Nothing in the stands was synchronised, and every so often you'd see a burst of fans just gone daft, just gone mental and throwing their arms at it in the stands, Liam, and I kept pointing this out. This was the Celtic 5-1 game in 1998, and how the behaviour of fans has completely changed. Everything seems to be all very organised. Back then, it was just like a free-for-all. And I think football was more spontaneous as well. And what I seen when Ireland got through to the playoff was spontaneity, Liam. It was phenomenal to see, wasn't it? It was tremendous.
You know, we couldn't have scripted that any better, though. See, the timing of the watch-along, and like, just as the game finished, we found out Ireland had got that last-minute winner, and like the comments were ecstatic. We were up, you know, it was just perfect.
It was brilliant. And the fact, of course, that Liam Scales played a massive part in that. He gets an assist against Portugal, and then, of course, he gets an assist the other night against Hungary. And it would be tremendous, would it not, Lawrence, as if you're talking about, you know, arcs of a character, it would be tremendous to see Liam Scales playing in the World Cup finals. I mean, you're talking about the good old days where we watched Don Aldridge getting taken on, put on for Tommy Coyne and losing the plot. You know, Ray Houghton's goals.
Ray Houghton,
aye. Ronnie Whelan's goal in '88. All these amazing moments, and you think to yourself, we might get a few more, and they might actually involve, as well as Parrott, they might involve guys like Adam Ida, Mike K. Johnston, Liam Scales, Johnny Kenny. I'm all in. I want to see it.
Yeah, it'd be phenomenal, wouldn't it? Be great to see Scales getting, you know, his success has been brilliant. I think month on month, you know, his stock's grown. You know, he's maybe not the most culture player we've had, but sheer attitude and determination, it's driving everything through, isn't it? And I think he's progressing as a player. You know, it's not that long ago he was loaned out to Aberdeen and getting beat by Darvel. Now he's probably been the best player this season, I would say.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with that, Lawrence. What I'm going to say to you, right, is we're talking nostalgia. Imagine Liam Scales on a 1980 Celtic side. He'd be a hero.
Oh, it'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
That would work, aye.
He would be a hero. It's like, I just think the expectations of fans have changed along with the game, where we're looking at Liam, he's not cultured enough and all this nonsense.
I think some of that comes... You went to the games then, you very rarely saw them on TV, you didn't watch it again and again, and not every mistake was highlighted.
We weren't analysing it as much.
It wasn't as much. You get so much video of the game now, everything's analysed, every bit. I mean, we said it even last season, look, we're a better player with him in the team. We said that last season when he came back in, we said, look, no matter what, we were losing less goals with him in, and we were playing better. You know, I was down, Sheila's down at Cock Tavern in Euston, they're all talking about Scales in there. With Shamrock Rovers and stuff. I was down at my uncle's funeral a few weeks back, but yeah, he would have been immense in the 80s in Celtic.
He would have. He would have.
He should go out and do his interviews in Irish as well, his Celtic interviews as well as his Ireland interviews. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? But Steve Collins about it.
I know. No enouggh's been made about that. Afternoon Troops says Joe Hamilton songs. Great to hear from you, Joe. The board will play it safe and settle for the cheapest option. Martin O'Neill
and
Maloney. Cheapest option.
The cheapest option won't be Nancy. You're talking 7 figures there. That's another point that keeps coming up about him being the cheap option. He's not the actual the cheap option. I think anybody that's with a club isn't really a cheap option, Liam. Anybody who's currently employed that's going to take something to get them obviously out of their contract.
So the cheap option thing, it's not just the fee and the wages. It's what you're promising them. Don't laugh, and players that we're going to bring in and what we're going to spend.
Mm-hmm.
What model, how much we're going to commit to giving them in the transfer window. That all comes into it, doesn't it?
Mm.
Well, obviously last year, Brendan, you spent big. Listen, guys like Engels and Trusty and Ida, they showed in the Champions League. They were the kind of level we needed.
Yeah.
So will we be committing to that level again? Are we going back to £3-4 million players with the manager? What would we promise them for January? Because let's be honest, the injury list, obviously Maeda reportedly wanting away again. You're going to need a few strikers, a right winger anyway, probably a right back. You're going to need 4 guys to come in that can compete for the 15 places.
I think it's going to have to be a groundbreaking January transfer window. Now, what I mean by that is the last time I think we had one of those was Ange Postecoglou's first season, where he brought in Matt O'Reilly, Idiguchi, Hatate, and Maeda. He brings in 4 guys that can. Well, one of them didn't work out. 4 guys in one window, and that window was January. We need to do that and more this January.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's very unusual for that to be done. That amount of business to be done.
If Nancy comes, would you take Diego Rossi? He's goal scorer in his team at the moment, who's apparently a contract, a Uruguayan boy.
If Nancy comes, I've got this as a point, Lawrence. I think what happens with that is there has to be some kind of a reliance on their specialist knowledge. You don't put all the focus on that, but there needs to be some reliance on their specialist knowledge. So if he's got 2 or 3 guys that he thinks, actually, I could bring them in, they could slot in here at Celtic, absolutely. I think you've got to have that. I think it's an added element that we had with Ange, with his knowledge of the Japanese game and Australian football. You could argue that some of Brendan's best signings came from England. You could argue. I mean, Dembele came from England.
Definitely the market he knew. Was it Scots and Clare?
Yeah. I think
that's how we got Kyogo, was Ange's knowledge of Japan. As soon as he came in the door, first guy he signs is Kyogo.
Yeah, so I think it's one tool. It's not the only one, but it's one tool that I think you've got to utilise.
I wouldn't be surprised if the scout department's looking through the MLS videos just now. If Nancy is, for negotiations with him, I wouldn't be surprised if Tidsdale or Neil, whoever's directing the scouts just now, had said, look, he's better up to speed on these guys.
I don't want Lewis Morgan back. Right, here we go. Shadow. Nancy's situation has how vibes. Oh, I was so optimistic yesterday, Shadow. If you watched the show back, myself, Quinny, and Kev Graham were saying, what if this is all part of a big master plan? I mean, I don't know what came over us. I mean, me and Kev can go for it.
But it's Martin O'Neill. See his interviews and what he brings to the club. It's hard not to be upbeat when you've got Martin O'Neill about the place. And that's probably why we should keep him. Because, we talked about no one is really a spokesperson for the club. Michael barely releases a statement, never mind, an interview.
Not fit.
Martin did come as director of football. Jeez, you'd have somebody that could speak up for the club, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And the thing with that, people say, but you don't need a CEO that speaks. You do. You do. At Celtic Football Club, that's part of your role. You need to communicate with your fan base. You're the leader. Fan base. You are the leader of that football club. And the leadership is what we've been lacking. So very quickly, guys, right? Martin O'Neill's going to be in charge against St Mirren on Saturday night. If, going back to what Shadow says, if the Nancy deal breaks down, Liam, are we in agreement that what you do is you take a step back and say, you know what? Let's just keep the stability just now. Let's get through the January. Let's get the cup final done in December, and let's concentrate on the season as we are. And then whoever is the next candidate, we'll do our work on them and we'll make sure that they are in, and we're not rushing anything. Because see if Nancy breaks down, and if he was in on that list, number 1 candidate, and we don't get him, don't panic. Just don't panic and take any manager that's on the list.
It's interesting actually that now I'm not gonna. This wasn't an exclusive that I broke. There were a few sites that ran the story about the same time, but just as that story about Nancy telling the Montreal owner to do one becomes wide knowledge, suddenly things apparently aren't 100% done with Celtic.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the reason why, but maybe.
It could
Maybe
well
they
be.
realise he's not the yes man they were looking for.
This is a possibility. There's also the realisation that in terms of contracts, we've got someone who's brilliant at contract. It's so good that he recognises little nuances, like things like tax implications if we're trying to buy a player from Belgium that only affects Celtic Football Club, and also the FFP guidelines when you've got £73 million in the bank. He realises you're not allowed to spend any money. So I'm confident that we've got the contracts guy in place to get the number one target over the line, or not, as the case may be. I've got to say, it's been tremendous with Liam and Lawrence in the building today. Scotland are playing Denmark tonight, and I want Dykes to be the hero and for Scotland to qualify. Of course I do, just to be selfish. Thanks every single one of you for continuing to support Acsom. Follow us on the socials, give us a thumbs up on the video, subscribe and hit the notifications bell, and join us tomorrow again at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.